Population of the earth. Adam. Did the human race begin with one man only? No. The man known as Adam was neither the first nor the only man who populated the earth. Is it, is it possible to determine when Adam lived? Adam lived approximately around the time that you attribute to him, about 4,000 years before Christ. The man that we refer to as Adam was one of the people who survived one of the great disasters that changed the earth's surface. Gotta,
Go ahead.
gotta move it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, keep looking at the book.
Okay, okay. Adam lived approximately around the time you attribute to him, about 4,000 years before Christ. The man we refer to as Adam was one of the people who survived one of the great disasters that changed the earth's surface over the course of history. He became the foundation of one of the races that populate our planet today. The laws of nature dictate that it would be impossible for the amount of progress that we know to have been accomplished by humanity long before Christ to have been accomplished so quickly if it had only existed since the time of Adam. Some have doubled, dubbed the story of Adam a myth or an allegory personifying the earliest ages of the world, a brief that currently stands as the most reasonable.
Thank you. So all religions and all cultures have some kind of genesis, some kind of how everything is started. Being the planet itself, being the human race itself. And of course, as we're going to see ahead, it varies according many factors, and the most important is environmental factors. Okay? The truth is where you live defines pretty much your culture. Okay? Someone who lives surrounded by mountains not gonna have the same culture, the same state of mind of someone who lives by the coast and have the horizon of the oceans right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Someone who lives surrounded by forest in the subtropical or equatorial forest will have a different set of mind and a different culture development of someone who lives in desertic areas. I mean, someone who lives in the Amazons will not have the same culture as someone who lives in the Sahara, right? The environment conditions makes tremendous differentiations on in culture. So that's the first thing right then and there. But every race, every culture, every religion have its own genesis, where how things began, and all of them are allegoric. All the all the books, the religious books, they they are books not of science, but they are books to teach us moral values. The goal, the objective of all of the divine scriptures or the religious books are not to teach us science, it's to teach us moral values. And all of them use allegory, use metaphor to bring these moral lessons, the moral messages contained in it. Christ used the parables. There was not a man that really got beat up on the street, the Samaritan. Christ creates that story to provide us a valuable moral lesson. Thing is, most of the other cultures, they understand that. The cultures say that the word that is start from an arachnoid. There is a tribe in the west coast of the United States that they have a beautiful legend that states the whole world start from a spider. Even they know that that is an allegory to explain how things started. For some
Hmm.
reason, in the Western, people start to take things literally, and people will take literally that the whole human race started from one man, which of course, that science definitely denies that possibility, and common sense, even outside of science, completely denies this possibility. But the Genesis is a beautiful book of moral teachings. It's a beautiful book that establishes the formation, the beginning of human beings, the beginning of us spirits live in the states of intelligent principle and become individualized intelligent principle. That is the lessons in Genesis. For anyone who is interested on that, on the book Genesis, released chapter 7, I think, there is the Mosaic Genesis, in which Kardec breaks down the Mosaic Genesis and make a parallel with the geological eras of the form of Earth from its formation with development, and kind of matches pretty well with each one of the days of the Genesis. Now, the first day is that it be light, the second day, the third day. When Kardec makes a parallel of what we know scientifically and what is in Genesis, that is a match. Of course, that one day would be represented by millions and millions of years, of course, right? So no, it's impossible that the human begins with only one man. It's genetically impossible, okay? And what Adams represents is exactly the time in which the human beings evolved because the pre-human um, humanoids, so they say, became human beings. But of course, not one single person, right? And the time that they give 4,000 years before Christ is way too short. We could have never developed so much in 4,000 years before Christ to where we are today. So it has to be a lot more than that. Okay. The earliest fossils of the evidence of humans of Homo sapiens is about 300,000 years. So we have been around for at least 300,000 years, not 4,000 years. I'm talking about Homo sapiens, not pre-Homo sapiens, not humanoids. Okay.
Mhm.
Pre-humans, the earliest fossil that we're able to count is about 5 to 7 million years ago. That's what science tells us. Okay. Um, yeah, that's it on that. Any questions? Any comments? So again, Adam is a symbol. It symbolizes the beginning of humans on the planet, or Homo sapiens on the planet. Okay, and the whole history of Genesis is a beautiful parable, a beautiful metaphor of our growing up from intelligent principle and become an individualized intelligent principle. We can't go over the bit of Genesis here, the metaphor of Genesis, because that's not the objective of the studies, but we could even give a presentation on the beauty of the Mosaic Genesis in a later time. Any questions?
Okay.
All right, move on.
Okay. Diversity of the human race. 52. What causes the physical and moral differences in the diversity of the human race on Earth? Climate, lifestyles, and habits. The same differences are produced in two children born to the same mother, but raised apart from one another under different conditions. Bear no moral resemblance to each other. Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Should I continue doing the
No,
thing?
no, no. I
Okay.
can stop there.
Mhm.
Remind me to move these things up. I'm not used to it. I'm used to look at the book and now using the screen. So as I said before, environmental pretty much defines how cultures are formed. Okay, as I said before, where you live, if you live in an area in which the normal wind condition is a gust of winds blowing, I don't know, at 100 miles per hour at some parts of the Himalayas, this by itself will define the way you build your house, the clothes, the clothes that you dress with. It will define how you protect the animals around it, what materials we use to build your house. You have to have big, heavy stones. You cannot use, you know, little things that someone may use, let's say in tropical areas, they can use just dry leaves and build a house with. So all those, just the wind, that's only the wind. The access to water, someone who lives right in the lake, or someone who lives on top of the mountain, you have to go down to get water and go up to get water and go up with the water on their shoulders, will develop culture differently, will develop different tools. Where we live even shapes our physical body. We always started from Africa at one point, and then we spread to all the world, and you see the diversity of body shapes. That's all molded by two things: topography and climate. Someone who lives and have to walk on the snow, we usually have very thick, strong thighs and shorter legs. They are usually shorter. They have to be compact to hold on heat. Someone who lives in areas in Africa where the sun is cutting 40 degrees are usually tall and slender because they want to dissipate a lot of heat. Usually they will have long legs, long arms. Different for someone who lives in areas of a lot of snow, in areas of in the Arctic areas. So only that, even our physical body is shaped by environmental. And so it is cultures, of course. Okay. And that will explain the diversity. But in the Arctic, in the equatorial areas, in the tropical, in the subtropical, with biotypes different, with different cultures, we all want the same thing. We want to be protected. We want to protect our loved ones. We all want a security for ourselves, for our loved one. We all want peace for ourselves and for our loved ones. So there is all those things in common amongst us. And there will be in all of those areas, those who are more morally evolved, those who are less morally evolved. There will be those who will be good citizens, and those that unfortunately not so good citizens will be walking around kicking the dogs. What I'm trying to say is that although the cultures may be different, the biotypes may be different, the moral qualities is not influenced by the environment, it's not influenced by the biotypes. There is the development of the moral qualities of the spirit, regardless of geography, of topography. and because we are here to experience with different level of spirits, to learn from them or to teach them, we will have everywhere in the world basic good people and bad people, regardless of culture, regardless of biotype. Does it make sense?
Guess so.
Oh, Elmo, I'm thinking of something.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard through the media.
Speak a little louder.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I've heard that, let's say, two twins that were separated in life, and then throughout their years, they became adults. They found each other, and they found out they were twins and separated at birth. Then uh, they had the same interests. Uh, they were like everything they did in life was just identical. But now I see what you're saying. You're saying the moral, they're not the same in moral, right?
They may or they may not be.
So then how do you explain that?
What you suggest in there is that there is a genetic component that
Okay.
leads those two to have a similarity of tastes, similarity of desires. Okay. By
Okay.
each one of them, you have those similarities in accordance with the culture that they grew up.
Okay.
So let's assume that it's identical twins. Let's say that I have identical twins. And okay, and they take one and brought them to live in a countryside of China. And they take another one to live in a metropolis like New York City. They may have a lot in common, but they grew up in completely different cultures. Okay, the way to express all they have in similarity, it will be in accordance to each culture. Okay, there may be a genetic component over there that leads them to have a lot of similarities, but the environmental factor will be strong that those similarities will be expressed in accordance with that culture.
Okay, I see.
And that's why I very often I say that we need to be smart enough when unfortunately analyzing people to peel off all those cultural factors or those things and see the spirit naked, so to say. And
Yes.
then we see the true colors of the spirits. And then when you do that, we see that those twins have a lot more in common when you peel off of those cultural aspects.
Yep. Okay, I got you. Understand. Mhm. Thank you, Elmo.
On.
Okay,
Okay.
so continue 53. Was humankind born at various points around the planet? Yes, and at various times. This is one of the causes of diversity in the human race. The earliest peoples spread out across different climates and combined with other races, which formed new ethnic groups. Do these differences constitute different species? Of course not. All of these different people are a single family. Do the differences between the varieties of the same fruit stop them from being the same species? Mm.
Okay. So again, um, climate topography will influence everything, including our biotype. How do we look? Short, with fat legs, with skinny legs, with the color of our skin, someone who lives in area of tremendous amount of sun, like the African, like we have a darker skin because they need a lot of melanin to protect against sunlight. Someone who lives where there is little sun or some few hours a day will have a pale skin. They don't need that much melanin. Okay, so
Mhm.
as we left Africa and start roaming around, moving to different areas of the globe, we started to differentiate. And through generic, it's not mutation, but acclimation would be the word. Those who, let's say, those who were better prepared to live in those kind of climates would survive. The others were not, would die, and eventually they all would look more alike in that region, right? Because those who survive, or those who were better prepared, or were stronger, would be the ones who would mate and procreate, and eventually, all the others with a less prepared genetic pool would disappear slowly. So, let's say European, the white, the Aryans will take place, and in China, the yellows will take place, and so forth and so on. Okay, but it's still all human beings. It's still all of us with 46 chromosomes, which makes us the same species. The same way that a Chihuahua and a San Bernard are both Canis familiaris, are both dogs. But if you look at Chihuahua and a San Bernard, you may think it's a different species, but it's still absolutely the same species.
Mm.
Okay?
Okay, understood. Okay, 54. If the human species cannot be traced back to a single ancestor, should humans stop regarding one another as brothers and sisters? Under God, all human beings are brothers and sisters, animated by a spirit and having the same goal. The human mind is inclined to interpret words literally.
Okay, so again, the fact that we do not look alike, secondary to environmental conditions, as you already explained. And even if we come from a different ancestry, first of all, we have one common ancestry, we derive from Africa. But truly more important, we are all sons and daughters of an one and only Father, Mother, that is God. So we are all brothers and sisters under God. We all receive the same opportunities from God the same way. And we are all predestined to purify ourselves to reach spiritual purification the same way. So all these three factors make us brothers and sisters.
Mm.
Okay? And
Mhm.
created from the one and only Father, Mother, giving equal opportunities to reach the perfection that awaits us, and be predestined to reach that perfection. How long it is going to take is up to us. How we use the tools given to us, the same way, the free will, the intelligence, opportunities to repair and learn, it's up to us. Okay?
Mhm. Yes.
Question,
I have a question.
please.
Um, I was thinking here, you're saying about the environment and the difference, but morally speaking, Um, we're the same. Doesn't matter where we are. So when you think about, we look Africa being pretty much where everything started, and also Africa, among different examples, was one of the place of one of the greatest civilization that we had, like the Egyptians, intellectually speaking, let's put that way. Uh, and when you look throughout history, Africa is still, at least in my perception nowadays, is underdeveloped. And you see, if you look to the prisma that great minds and moral evolved spirits have the ability to take the place, the surroundings, and evolve the place, let's put that way, for the lack of a better word. So in your opinion, why is that, for example, a place like Africa is, that had the opportunity to be in a better shape, let's put that way, it's so far behind in our eyes?
Okay, I have my opinion, I have my ideas that may not be pleasing to many people to hear it. Um, you use the Egypt civilization, perhaps one of the smartest group of people who have inhabited this planet, right? Do you think that those spirits that once reincarnate and build that amazing civilization are the same spirits who inhabit the present Egypt
No.
or the present the whole North Africa? Because the Egyptian civilization was not on the little tiny country that is Egypt today. The empire was huge, right? Was half of Africa basically, right? So those are not the same spirits anymore. Those spirits went somewhere else. I heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, a great number of them went back to Capella actually. So some of the spirit spread out, they went someone else, and other spirits less evolved um, took over that region. And I feel confident to say that it's less evolved because there was no continuity of the tremendous intellectual progress that they achieved at one point. It seems like they put a stop on that progress and not regress, but stop on that progress and kind could not continue, move on with that tremendous progress. So one thing that I have to consider here is migration of spirit migration. Going somewhere, doing something else. My job here is done. I'm going somewhere else. Let other take over and continue. Unfortunately, authors that went there to take over and continue chose not to continue and did not continue that progress. So for one thing is migration of spirit. For another thing is Bellic power. Unfortunately, more war-prone spirits in this world, especially in the past, would get away with things, and and a group of spirits would be intellectually evolved, morally, somewhat more evolved, but didn't have means to fight back those barbarians. They lost the empire, the position, and they have to spread out and in order to survive, or completely went somewhere else, migrate somewhere else as well. And even if we do recognize that some of those areas that at our stand the standard that we measure things today are underdeveloped, you see in some of those areas tremendous amount of moral and intellectual development as well individually that does not function collectively. You know, we're not. The other day was listening to some people from mid Africa, Senegal, and I was impressed with the culture, impressed with the intelligence of the group of people saying things. But if you look at Senegal, it's almost a mismatch. Those guys so eloquent, is smart, but it does not reflect on, let's say, on a PIB of that country. So in order to make a true evaluation of the individual of the involvement of the individual in that area, just to look at the at the state of that country or that region may not be enough. They may be intellectual, pretty good, but cannot put up um, a greater development like we'd have in the so-called superpowers. And we don't see, like say today, we don't see any fully developed countries in the subtropical equatorial areas. All the developed countries are in above the subtropical, tropicals. All the developed countries are subtropical and arctical. Is there a climate influence over there? The need to protect, to prepare for the winter, while let's say in Brazil, it's summer all year round. You don't have to do things as we have to be done in the Northeast. So there is an environmental factor there as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I was thinking of Africa, even Mexico with the Incas and the Mayans, those places that had this, great civilizations. And you look, for example, China, it's different, they still growing there. They're pretty much they're everywhere nowadays. So I was kind of, so why this morally intellectual spirits were once on those places and then they just vanish, or they're not being reincarnated on those places anymore. And pretty much we know that the spirits that will make the country or whatever, and they are everywhere living those places, that at least I think had potential, because otherwise they wouldn't not have those civilization in the first place, and now they are gone.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that the spirits that built those fantastic empires are not the same ones inhabiting those areas right now, right?
Yeah, they're not the same, but even though the young bloods, let's put it that way, the newest generation, they're not in there, because you see great minds that like Einstein, and we can go on and on with scientists and everything. They pretty much they are developing new things and advancing society in different countries, different place, out of those that I mentioned.
Yeah, but it's not fair to say um, that they may not be also rather developed intellectually, as I used the example when I was listening to this Senegalese individual speaking, extremely eloquent, extremely smart. Why does it not reflect in the economy of the country? Why does it not reflect in the progress of the country itself? It's I don't have an answer, but in some of those so-called third world, there is tremendous amount of good culture and intellect that should be tapped. Why does it not reflect in progress of the country? I don't have an answer.
But thanks for your input. Very qualified.
Yep. Thanks. Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions? Because you move to another topic.
Are the same price too, but the one over here doesn't have it for pickup.
There's a question in the chat.
Well, it's
Sure.
not like you needed, or
Yeah,
emergency.
but no, not an emergency, but tomorrow I have a ride to go get errands and things done, like I wanna go to
Not
work
being
or
able to
whatever,
see it
and it's
makes
gonna be hard to
sense
do
to
without a
me.
screen.
I'll read to you. It's
Sure.
from Eric. He's asking, is there a spiritual superpower place like there are economic and financial superpower place?
And then I could go with the baby to go with
You want me to read again?
Yeah, no, I got it.
I got it.
Thanks.
Put it together.
Yeah, but it's all like, it's like.
There is hierarchy
put it
of
together,
spirits,
like
which you're going to
every
study in this
split,
book very soon.
that's not, it's not hard.
And there are places
Click on.
where the most elevated spirits
Hey, like,
will inhabit.
give it a go. I thought so.
There are places where the Christs
Again,
inhabit.
And I just started working.
I would say those are the superpower places
Hit it.
in the spiritual world,
So
where
click
there's
on.
places inhabited by the so-called Christs. The spirits who completed the journey and are now considered to reach complete purification.
I don't know. It was a gift. I got someone.
Did somebody speaking? Could you mute
We
yourself,
have
please?
like much bigger ones, but I have like the, like it's a little smaller. Like I think.
Yeah, I think you can mute the person, Elmo. I think it's
They have some with like.
is the 9183.
You can put like three
Yeah, you
things at
can
the
mute
same
them.
time. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, but I love that. They hear now. But not. I don't. I've never done food. I've done.
Who,
like,
9183?
like
Yeah.
frying or baking, like.
Yeah.
Either that or
Yeah, I don't see it.
Fries
Yeah,
here.
you can.
You could do.
yeah, those are they are not unmuted.
Anything like
Oh, that's
Baking,
9183 is mute.
anything. The
lasagna,
majority of
Yeah.
stuff that you could
How about the
fry
4345?
or bake, you can put in there. The thing is, it's much smaller. So to do a lasagna,
you have to get a smaller.
you know what I'm saying? Like that's better in the oven, right? But
Well, like people is all right, but when you wanna make a big one, that's different. And usually when you make lasagnas,
Okay. It's 345. Yeah, okay. So in hierarchy of the spirits, we will find ourselves where we belong, where our conscience leads us. So right now we inhabit a world of unevolved spirits. We are in this phase that we are not completely ignorant spirits, but we're still very far from the perfection that awaits us. When you go back to the spiritual world, we will find that area in the spiritual world where we belong. And we'll be pretty much all about the same level. Unlike, can you hear me? Unlike here that we are mixed different levels. So again, so we can learn from others and teach others, right? But in the spiritual world, we will find ourselves in pretty much the same level, most of us, okay? And there is a level for, there will be the superpower where all the Christs, all the pure spirits resides, where they make their home, which I have no idea what it may look like, or it might feel to be there. That would be what I would consider the superpowers. Nothing like here, where Tria is the greatest bellic power, becomes a superpower. That would be the greatest amount of charity or the purity would be the superpowers. Okay?
Okay. We continue. Existence of multiple worlds. 55. Are all the planets that revolve in space inhabited? Yes. The people on Earth are far from being the leaders in intelligence, goodness, and general development, despite what they may believe. There are many people who have such a high opinion of themselves and even believe that your little world alone has the privilege of being inhabited by intelligent beings. What an arrogant thought. They believe that God has created the universe only for them. God has populated planets with living beings, all of which have a role in the ultimate divine plan. Believing that living beings are confined to one point of the universe inhabited by us casts doubt on God's wisdom. God has done nothing in vain and must have assigned a purpose to every other world that is more important than merely serving as a loving backdrop for our planet. Furthermore, there is nothing in the position, size, and physical makeup of Earth that warrants the assumption that it alone, of the thousands of planets in space, has a privilege of being inhabited.
Okay, so they especially very clearly that there are planets and many of celestial bodies inhabited by intelligent beings. Some incarnate, some discarnate. Some planets serve just like Earth as a school for more ignorant spirits like ourselves. Some planets would serve like beginners spirits, those who have recently left the stage of intelligent principle and have become individualized intelligent principle, which we are far from it already. We have passed that stage a long time ago. But there is words for them. And there is, again, words or words that inhabited primarily by discarnated spirits. Those no longer need reincarnations any longer. There, of course, will be much more evolved spirits. To imagine this universal expansion has one single tiny speckled planet as Earth to be inhabited by intelligent life is absolutely absurd to anyone who reasons a little bit. Question, comments? All right, 56. So Ryder, you mute.
Okay, thank you. Do all planets have the same physical constitution? No, they do not resemble one another at all. 57. As the physical constitution of the various planets is not the same for all, do the beings inhabiting those worlds have a different type of body and physical makeup? Of course, just as fish in your world are designed for living in water and birds for the air.
Thanks.
Very good. Very good.
So we just spoke that environmental conditions shape up even our biotype, even how we human beings, the same species in the same planet, look different from one another in accordance to where we live. And where we live, of course, talking about thousands of years, right? If I move to China now, I'm gonna have chink eyes and become yellow. It's gonna continue being black with the same way I am. Talking about thousands of years, right? If environment conditions shape our biotype here, can you imagine in worlds, in planets where or celestial bodies were completely different, have an atmosphere completely different, places where they have a gravity force that is much smaller than Earth, or much, 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 much bigger than Earth, could we have the same biotype? In a place, let's say, where there is no oxygen, would we have the same biotype? It's impossible, right? The perispirit will utilize the material in that environment, in that planet, in that celestial body, and build up physical bodies that in accordance to what they have in that planet, and in accordance to what is necessary to sustain life in that kind of environment. So we will be extremely different from one another. Imagine a place where there is no oxygen, period. Only that's enough to make us completely different beings. Everything could be completely different. But it's still spirits reincarnating, going through the process of educating oneself with a different uniform. It's like, if you go to a high school in the Bronx and you have to wear a blue uniform, and then you go to a high school in Manhattan where you have to wear the red uniform. But it's still spirits, still progressing. Just using a different body to go to that school because the requirement is different. Okay?
Mm.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay, so should we do this, Elmo? Or we stop here?
let's finish that since we start late. Anyway, we stop, okay?
Okay, 58 then. Are the planets furthest removed from the sun, deprived of light and heat, since the sun only appears to be a tiny star to them? Are you assuming that there are no other sources of light and heat than the sun? Are you completely dismissing electricity, which in some worlds plays a role unknown to you, and which is much more important than the role it plays on Earth? Besides, how do you know that the beings of those worlds see the same way you do, with organs like yours? The conditions of existence for the beings inhabiting different worlds must be adapted to the world in which they are destined to live. If we had never seen fish, we would not be able to comprehend how any living being could survive in water. This
Apply.
idea applies to all the other worlds, which most likely contain elements that are
That
unknown
are unknown to us.
on our own planet.
Planet. Long popular nights are.
On our own planet, the long polar nights are illuminated by the electricity displays of the aurora borealis, commonly called the.
Commonly called the Northern Lights.
Is it impossible to imagine that electricity may be more abundant in other worlds compared to ours and play a role that we cannot even fathom? According to this argument, those worlds could contain different sources
Those
of
worlds
heat and light
contain the different source
by the
of the heat and the light required by their inhabitants.
Tony, you have to mute yourself.
Okay, you can disregard the aurora borealis, you can disregard the electricity, a lot of things over there. The significance of this question is that at the time of Kardec, it was a condition for life as we knew at that time, that there had to be heat and light. Okay, now you know that's not the case. You know that there is a lot of animals who live in the absence of light because they can create their own light, right? They can do photosynthesis. According to Emmanuel, not yet truly revealed by our science, sun's rays reach every single point of this planet, even the depths of the abysms in the ocean. That sun's rays are not perceivable by our eyes, not perceivable by our instruments. So it's absolute darkness in some abysms in the ocean. But according to Emmanuel, and now you take his word for it or not, sun's rays goes even there, and that's the only way that you could have life in those areas. Okay, and there is life in those areas as well. Okay, but the thing is, and that is the problem with us trying to find life somewhere else, is that you have a very limited parameters to define a life, to define what's necessary for life. And it's not wrong. That's what we have. That's what we know so far. As we progress, perhaps we're going to expand those things. And that is the point that the spirits are making here. You judge that there is no light, there is no heat in those planets, in accordance to your ability to perceive light and heat. Are you sure? It's zero. It's really zero light, zero heat. And two, are you sure that there are no other things that replaces light and heat, such as electricity, to allow life to exist in those planets? So we know very little, and you know very little of what we could define as life. Nothing wrong with that. That's how much we have evolved so far. But perhaps there are lives, and there is life forms that is completely outside of what we understand as life right now. We have a very limited ability to perceive a lot of things yet. And that's what the Spirit's talking about, and use electricity as an example. That could be electricity, could be anything else. Of course, we don't know what it is. So whatever hypothesis is a good hypothesis.
Elmo, I like to make a comment.
Sure.
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay, the same way we define light and heat and cannot really be able to project those concepts into realms that are beyond us, I even
Or to measure it.
question my own thinking process and my logic.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't have means to measure everything yet,
Exactly.
right? Maybe perhaps there is an amount of heat and light that we're not able to measure yet. And two, are there life forms that does not require heat and light like we do? Why not?
Exactly.
Why do you have, because we measure life in
Yes.
accordance to ourselves, so as we understand. And that is right. That's what we have right now.
Exactly.
Until you progress and are able to expand the definition of living being and what is required for living beings in these different worlds. And that's the point that the Spirit's making here. Okay?
That's very deep.
Yep. So let's make a prayer. I will make the final prayer. With our thoughts elevated, in connection with our good spirits. We give thanks to God for this opportunity given to us to better understand ourselves, to better understand the creation, so we can reach a better understanding of the Creator. We know how blessed we are, dear God, for being exposed to these texts. We asked to be guided, to be inspired, to use all those wonderful tools as instrument for moral and intellectual progress. May we continue to have the opportunity to study, to develop ourselves, to have a blessed, protected week, to serve in the causes of Christ to the best of our abilities. And you ask permission to close this meeting. So be it.